I never thought my life would turn into a soap opera. Not the glamorous kind, but the cheap daytime drama you watch while eating cereal alone on a Tuesday morning. The kind where the heroine gets humiliated, loses the man she loves, and no one really wins except the evil twin. I'm Emily, 35 years old, no husband, no kids, and apparently a walking punchline for my own family. Especially for my sister Jessica, who has made it her personal mission to remind me every chance she gets. Jessica is 6 years younger than me. She's married, has the perfect house with white picket fences. Okay, not literally, but close enough. And an Instagram feed that screams, couple goals. Her husband, Tom, is the kind of man you see on magazine covers, tall, charming, and with a smile so perfect it should be illegal. What she doesn't advertise in those filtered photos is the fact that Tom was my boyfriend first. Yes, you heard that right. The same Tom who now calls Jessica honey and kisses her like she's the only woman on earth used to be the guy who whispered sweet nothings in my ear during late-night phone calls. I met Tom in college. He was the charming senior with the perfect smile and a talent for making you feel like you were the only person in the room. We dated for 2 years, 2 years of inside jokes, coffee dates, and late-night movies. Then one day he disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye, just vanished like a ghost. I tried to move on, but ghosts are hard to shake, especially when they show up years later holding hands with your little sister. And that's how I ended up sitting on Jessica's immaculate couch last Thursday morning, trying not to choke on my own bitterness. Jessica had invited me to a girls' brunch, which, based on past experience, meant she was about to parade her perfect life in front of me like a dessert I wasn't allowed to taste. The moment I stepped into her house, I felt it, the weight of judgment in the air. Jessica's smile was wide but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Oh, Emily," she said, voice syrupy sweet. "Still single at 35? How brave of you." I smiled tightly, forcing my lips to cooperate. If I showed even a flicker of hurt, she'd feast on it for days. Tom was there too, sitting on the couch, looking every bit as smug as Jessica. He greeted me with a nod, polite but distant, like he was a guest at his own wedding. Jessica launched into her usual routine. How amazing her marriage was, how Tom was the best husband in the world, how she couldn't wait to start a family, all of it delivered with the kind of glee that only someone who knows they've won can muster. I sipped my coffee, trying not to focus on the aching pit in my stomach. "So, any new guys in your life?" Jessica asked, arching a perfectly shaped eyebrow. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Nope, still enjoying the single life." Her smile flickered for a moment, then she said, "Well, you should hurry up. Time isn't exactly on your side." The room fell silent, except for the clatter of plates and cutlery. I wanted to say, "I'm not your project," but I swallowed the words. Later, Tom excused himself to take a phone call. Jessica pulled me aside with a conspiratorial look. "You know, Emily," she whispered, voice sharp, "it's funny how you act like losing Tom was no big deal." I blinked, confusion and something darker mixing in my chest. "Jessica, that was years ago. We weren't even serious by the end." She smirked, but her eyes were cold. "Sure, if you say so." The truth was plain. Jessica had stolen him. Or maybe he walked right into her arms, but either way, she was proud of the fact that she took what was mine. I wanted to scream, but instead, I smiled. Because what else could I do? That day, I left her house early, clutching my handbag like it was a lifeline. The cold air outside hit me like reality, brutal and unforgiving. I walked to my car, thinking about everything I'd lost. Not just Tom, but my pride, my dignity, and maybe even my faith in family. But beneath the hurt, a new feeling was growing. Determination. I wasn't going to be the loser in this story. No. This was just the beginning. The brunch wasn't the first time Jessica had humiliated me, and it wouldn't be the last. But this time, I was done pretending to be the sweet, forgiving older sister. I spent the next few days replaying every cruel word, every smirk, every glance that screamed, "You're less than me." And I decided it was time for a little payback. Not the messy, dramatic kind you see on reality TV, but something slow, precise, and unforgettable. I started by digging. I wanted to know everything about Jessica's perfect little world. The cracks in the facade, the skeletons in the closet, the things she didn't want anyone to find out. It turns out everyone has skeletons. Even Jessica. I found things she thought she'd buried. Secrets about her past. Lies she'd told to cover up mistakes. Even some financial troubles hidden behind her Instagram perfect life. And then there was Tom. Talking to some of his old friends, I learned that he wasn't exactly the saint Jessica made him out to be. The charming man I once knew had a few secrets of his own. Secrets that could ruin everything Jessica had built. Armed with this information, I felt a shift inside me. No longer the jilted sister or the lonely woman left behind. I was becoming something else, something sharper, something dangerous. Jessica had humiliated me in front of friends, family, and strangers. She had paraded her happiness like a trophy while rubbing salt in my wounds. But I wasn't going to beg for mercy or forgiveness. I was going to take back what was mine. One step at a time. That night, I sat in my small apartment, scrolling through old photos of me and Tom. We looked so happy then. So innocent. I wondered if he even remembered those days, or if Jessica had erased me from his memory completely. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to be forgotten. Not quietly. Not without a fight. Because sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't about breaking someone's heart. It's about breaking their world, and I was ready to start. After that brunch, I knew things had to change. Not because Jessica had humiliated me one more time. That was just the catalyst. No, I realized something far more important. I had been sitting on the sidelines of my own life, letting the narrative be written by others. I was done watching. It was time to write my own story. So I started playing the game. Jessica loved her perfect image, her flawless marriage, and her precious Instagram followers who hung on to every staged smile and carefully crafted caption. I decided to pull back the curtain, one tiny thread at a time. It was surprisingly easy. First, I began with Tom. You might think he was the perfect man, the one who abandoned me and chose my sister. But the truth was far messier. Talking to old friends and colleagues, I uncovered things Jessica clearly didn't know or chose to ignore. Tom was a player, a liar, and a selfish man who didn't hesitate to break hearts when it suited him. He was also terrible at managing money, which explained the occasional emergency texts from Jessica about bills she hadn't anticipated. I collected every little detail like puzzle pieces. Missed payments, suspicious texts, conversations about past flings he'd never mentioned, and The real reasons he left me, which ironically involved Jessica. Yeah, Jessica had more than a little to do with his disappearance back then. Armed with information, I felt a rush, a bitter cocktail of power and vindication. For the first time in years, I wasn't just the hurt ex-girlfriend or the single spinster, sister. I was something else, a woman with a plan. I knew Jessica's weak spots, her social media obsession, her fear of financial ruin, and her desperate need to maintain her perfect image. Next step? Infiltrate. Jessica loved to host parties and family gatherings, flaunting her perfect life in front of the people who mattered, or who she thought mattered. I accepted every invitation, always playing the part of the good sister, the caring aunt, the woman who had finally moved on. Inside, I was preparing my moves, carefully observing her and Tom, noting the little cracks beneath their glossy smiles. It didn't take long to find them. At one party, I overheard Jessica complaining to a friend about Tom's irresponsible spending. She laughed it off like it was no big deal, but the tension was palpable. Later, Tom was nowhere to be found. Jessica claimed he was working late, but I wasn't buying it. My gut told me he was hiding something. Then came the texts. One evening, as I pretended to scroll through my phone while sitting next to Jessica on her sofa, I caught a glimpse of a message popping up on her screen from a contact named M. It was vague, but the tone was clearly annoyed. M. You promised you'd handle it. Jessica, we can't keep covering for you. Jessica's eyes flicked up to meet mine, and I smiled sweetly. Crazy work stuff, she said, too fast. I made a mental note to dig deeper. I started small, subtle comments to mutual, friends, little casual questions when Jessica wasn't around. I learned that Jessica's perfect facade was cracking under pressure, with overdue bills, arguments over money, and Tom's continued irresponsibility. And then, I found the real bombshell. Tom had been cheating, not just with random strangers or some fling with someone close to Jessica. I sat on that truth like a volcano ready to erupt. But revenge isn't about rushing. It's about timing. I bided my time, waiting for the perfect moment to pull the trigger. Meanwhile, I worked on my own life. I wasn't going to just tear down Jessica's castle. I wanted to build my own. I started dating again, cautiously, but with a new sense of confidence. I took dance classes, joined book clubs, and even flirted shamelessly with a few attractive men at local bars. It felt good to reclaim my sense of self, to remember what it was like to be desired, not as a joke or charity case, but as a woman who mattered. Jessica noticed. Oh, she noticed all right. One evening, after a particularly revealing text from her about my sudden glow-up, she confronted me. You think you're better than me now, don't you? She snapped, voice low and venomous. I smiled. Better? No. Smarter. Definitely. That night, as I walked to my car, I felt a strange satisfaction. Jessica's perfect world was starting to wobble, and I was the unseen earthquake beneath. The next part of my plan involved social media. Jessica's whole identity was wrapped up in her followers, the constant validation from perfect photos and staged moments. I created a fake account, innocent enough to seem like just another admirer, but with access to the information I'd gathered. Slowly, I leaked small truths. Whispers of financial troubles, hints of Tom's wandering eye. Suggestions that their marriage was far from the fairy tale Jessica posted. The comments started to pile up. Subtle questions from followers, hushed rumors that spread like wildfire. Jessica's perfect image began to tarnish. She tried to fight, back with more photos, more declarations of perfect love, but the cracks showed through. Behind closed doors, things were worse. Tom was furious, his cheating exposed, and Jessica was desperate to hold on to her facade. I wasn't done yet. Had one last card to play. At a charity gala Jessica was organizing, I arrived as her unexpected guest. The event was buzzing with socialites and influencers, exactly the kind of audience Jessica needed to impress. Midway through the evening, I cornered Jessica in a quiet hallway. "Enjoying the show?" I asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. She glared. "What do you want, Emily?" I smiled sweetly. "Just here to remind you that everyone loves a good story, especially one where the queen gets dethroned." I handed her a folder, photos, texts, documents, proof of Tom's affairs, financial lies, and the real reason he left me. Jessica's face paled. This can't be true," she stammered. "Oh, it's true. And there's more where that came from." The gala erupted into whispers as I stepped back, letting the truth do the damage. Jessica's perfect world crumbled in front of everyone she wanted to impress. And me? I finally felt free. The night of the gala was supposed to be Jessica's crowning achievement, the event that sealed her status as the perfect wife, the queen of her social circle, and the envy of every woman who still hadn't snagged a ring by 35. Instead, it turned into her undoing. I watched from the sidelines as her carefully constructed world collapsed piece by piece, and not just because I wanted to see her fall. No, this was about me taking back what she stole. My dignity, my past, and finally, my future. When I handed Jessica that folder, I wasn't just delivering evidence. I was handing her the script of her own destruction. The photos, the messages, the bank statements, every shred of proof I could get my hands on about Tom's infidelity, their financial lies, and most deliciously, the real reason he'd left me years ago. It wasn't just because Jessica stole Tom from me. No, it was because she did it with such smug cruelty, parading him like a trophy, mocking my spinster status at every family event, whispering barbs under her breath about my lack of luck. And now, the tables had turned, as the murmurs in the grand ballroom swelled into outright whispers. I caught Jessica's eyes. They were wild, panicked, darting around like a cornered animal searching for an escape. But there was nowhere to run. By the time the gala ended, Jessica was a shell of the woman who had so effortlessly humiliated me for years. People who once fawned over her now averted their gazes, whispering in hushed tones. The perfect life? Exposed as a lie. And me? I walked away with a quiet satisfaction, not arrogance, but a calm sense of justice served. That should have been the end of it. But Jessica, in her usual desperate fashion, wasn't ready to surrender. Over the following weeks, she lashed out, sending cruel texts, spreading rumors about me, trying to turn the tables with half-truths and outright lies. Her most effective weapon was my age, the same thing she'd mocked me for so long. "You're almost 36, she sneered in one message. Still single, still desperate, still nothing. For a moment, I felt a familiar sting. The world had a way of reminding women like me that time was ticking, that maybe, just maybe, I was too late to have what I really wanted. But I refused. to let her win that battle. Instead, I focused on myself, on building a life that wasn't defined by a man, a marriage, or some superficial trophy status. I went back to school, enrolled in a creative writing course I'd always dreamed of, and started submitting stories to local magazines. I reconnected with old friends, traveled, and even began dating again. This time on my terms, with no rush, no pressure, just genuine connection. Meanwhile, Jessica's world continued to unravel. Tom, exposed and cornered, tried to save his own skin by blaming her. The couple's public image was in tatters, their friends drifting away like leaves in a storm. Then came the final blow, the lawsuit. Jessica had been skimming money from the charity gala funds for months, funneling cash into secret accounts. When I uncovered this, I didn't hesitate. I handed the evidence over to the authorities. Jessica was arrested. And just like that, the sister who once stood above me, mocking my single status and stealing my boyfriend, was reduced to headlines about fraud and betrayal. The day I heard the news, I sat in my apartment, a glass of wine in hand, and felt something I hadn't in years: peace. The peace that comes from knowing you fought back, from knowing you didn't let cruelty define you, from knowing you finally reclaimed your story. I wasn't the woman Jessica had tried to shame. I was something stronger, someone who had turned pain into power, and that, more than anything, was the sweetest revenge